Hey YouTube, so I wanted to create this kind of second part of the video or second part of the series where going over why are training in zones and having more of a structure to your kind of endurance program, whether it's running or triathlon or whatever the case is. So in the previous video, I talked about all the benefits, um, kind of like 30 seconds. You're not overtraining, you're actually moving in like a progress step with the goal in mind rather than just saying, hey, today I feel better, so I'm going to go an hour longer, or I'm going to do another 1 mile repeat, whatever the case is. So if you haven't watched that, make sure to go back and watch that because this video would make a lot more sense. So when doing one of the three sports, swimming, biking, or running, you want to know, well, this workout or this portion of time I'm going to do in this intensity zone. And if you're just going to go off how you feel, it really doesn't give you real evidence or exactly knowing how your intensity zone is. So basically what happens for most people is they kind of get in that medium speed and you kind of just stick there for a long period of time, more than is necessary or beneficial, and not enough slow time. So that's kind of another video to talk about. So in this video, I'm just going to go over what are the different tests or the different workouts to figure out where does that fall for you. So for swimming, just kind of start off here. It's pretty simple. There's really no technology or any real expensive devices that you need. Really, you can just use a pace clock. I have a Garmin 935 that I really use and that I really like, but necessarily for swimming, you really don't need really anything at all. As far as electronics or like sensors or anything like that. So basically for swim, what I really like to do is one of two tests. The first test is you just swim 1,000 meters or 1,000 yards, and you just take the average per 100 that you would take. So let's say it takes you 15 minutes. That's going to be an average of 130 per 100. And if you're swimming in a 50-yard pool or 25 or a 50-meter pool or a 25-meter pool or a 25-yard pool or some other pool configuration, I would really suggest to do this test in that specific pool length because it's going to give you the most accurate results. Now for the other tests, so in the last year and a half have used this a lot more. I just think it's shorter, so it's easier to pace. So in general, kind of a tangent here, but the longer the test is, the more difficult it is going to be able to pace for it. And that's just because the longer it is, the more difficult definitely going to be pacing, and then as well it's going to take more time to recover from. And I like to do these tests all right, not in a row, but within 1 week. So like sometimes I'll get done from the previous week, have an easy Sunday, Monday, or one of those days at least resting, and then Tuesday will be like the bike, Thursday will be swim, and then Friday or Saturday will be the run. So the shorter as well as reliable the test, then probably, my opinion, they're probably going to be better. So the other test is you 400 or 400 yards. Meters or yards doesn't really matter. And you take a 2-minute rest, and then you do a 200 at the end of the 200. So you have 600 yards total of swimming with a 2-minute rest in there. You should feel like you can't go anymore. So with all these tests, not just the swimming, you should feel at the end, I cannot hold it for another minute, another 30 seconds. So each of these are time trials that you really want at the end. This is as fast as I can go. which is really hard to time. You know, on 1,000 meter or 1,000 yard test, sometimes can I go out hard enough? Do I need to hold some back? That's kind of a difficult thing to tell as you're going. So, and then you're going to need both of those times, and you just plug it into a website, which I'll put in the description, and it just basically gives you all your different zones to use. And for the 1,000 meter test, you just need your average per 100. And if you can't figure that out, you can just put in the time as well, and it'll give you the zones as well. So that's for swimming. It's pretty basic. All tests, so not just swimming, you want to have a good warm up. It kind of depends on what you're comfortable with. Definitely, I would do about maybe 10 minutes of at least warm up. I would say running and biking probably a little bit more, in like the 20-minute range. But yeah, so like 10 minutes of swimming I think would be enough. And then you're going to do some like short 50s or 25s of sprinting, getting yourself to basically what that interval or what that pace is going to be. And then I usually like to do some easy swimming after that, and then like a minute or two of resting. So basically you want to be having your muscles feeling warm, but having your heart rate drop. That's kind of like what I usually tell athletes, of kind of to feel of like what it's going to be to really to do one of these test sets. So that's for the swim. And for the bike, it depends on what type of equipment you have. So there are lots of different tests to go over depending if you have a power meter or a heart rate monitor. If you don't have either of those, there are some other tests to do. They're really not going to be too reliable with data, because you can't get any data off this if you don't have something measuring. So the most common one that people use is either a 20-minute power test or a 30-minute power test. I personally like to do the 20-minute power test just because it's a shorter interval and it's not as difficult to pace or as difficult to recover from. So if you are going to do doesn't really matter which one that you do. And later video will kind of go over how to figure out all the zones. So 20-minute or 30-minute doesn't really matter depending on your point of view or your preference. Either one is going to work. And again, on these power tests, when you should do good warm up, you should definitely cool down afterwards. And when you get done at the end of the 20 or 30 minutes, you should be huffing and puffing and unable to speak if someone was next to you. That's definitely a good indication that you're going hard enough. And some other things about this, about these tests that I really have a big suggestion on, is you want to have some type of road that is not necessarily flat, but you're not going to be doing this huge, big climb, or definitely going down a lot of downhills is not something that's going to give you your true power. So if you're going like rolling hills, I think that's okay. But if you shouldn't be climbing, doing like a 4, 5, 7% grade, anything like that, you kind of want a flat-ish road. And obviously stoplights or like really big turns or anything like that are also not going to give you the best data or the best results. So if you don't have a power meter, but you do have a heart rate monitor, there's another test that you can do. Essentially, you're going to do the exact same warm up, the exact same cool down, but it's going to be a 30-minute test as well. So you're going to do the first 10 minutes. At the 10-minute mark, you're going to hit your lap button on your watch. And the last 20 minutes, the heart rate, basically the average heart rate of the last 20 minutes is going to be the number that you need. Now, why do you hit the lap button at 10 minutes? Well, when you're going that hard, it takes time for your heart rate to catch up to what your body's really doing. So that's really why Power is, if you can spend the money, it helps you tremendously. One of the benefits that I really like of it, when you're doing especially shorter intervals, the Power kicks in, within 2, 3, maybe 5 seconds. It's giving you real data that's right there, right in front of you, where the heart rate is going to take some time to catch up, or there's some lag time. Also, some benefits is if you're going uphill or downhill, or like a really big thing, if you're riding into the wind, it's gonna give you your power numbers, and it really doesn't matter if you're into the wind, or if the wind's at your back, or if you're going uphill, downhill. It doesn't matter. You could use that power number to see, are you improving? Are you, getting faster? Is 200 watts or 300 watts comparing your heart rate? I mean, that's a whole other video. But if you can get a power meter, there are very number of them, from pedals to in the crank to in your wheel hub. And the cheapest, like one-sided for a pedal, is, I've seen them like $400 or $500, and you could pay a lot more than that. So if you can do a power meter, I would 100% recommend it. So those are all the different tests for the bikes. Now, if you don't have any equipment, something that I recommend to athletes could be going out and doing like a 30-minute time trial on a set course. Now, this isn't going to give you data to train off of. You're still going to go by your quote unquote feel. And you want to know, what are those different feels like? What does it feel like to go this intensity zone? So it's really hard to just kind of describe how it feels, but kind of like that burning in your lungs, not being able to talk, those are all really, indications of that. So the one reason that you could be beneficial to that is seeing if you're improving or not. So map out a course that takes you about 20 minutes, or you can go up a riverbed or up like a street or canyon or anything like that, and seeing how long it takes you to go 20 minutes, mark it down, and seeing, in 3-4 weeks, can you go farther than that? So some things here, there's going to be a lot of variables like wind or temperature, traffic. If you can do it at the exact same time of day, so that's really going to mostly for the wind, and the temperature, you really can't do anything too much about that if if seasons are in play. And for the bike or for the run, it's really the exact same thing. If you do have run power meters, there are plenty of them. I really like the Stride. I've been using that for about 4 or 5 months. I 100% recommend them. They're about like a little over 200. And I know Garmin has some heart rate monitors that just double as a run power meter. So it really has all exact same benefits. Going up a hill, am I putting out my exact intensity as I was running on the flat? Like, I'm not really sure. My pace is definitely slowing, but is my intensity the exact same as running on a flat? Well, that's kind of where the power, the run power comes in. So if you do have a run power meter, the tests are pretty much the same. You do 20-minute or 30-minute, and you use both of those numbers that we'll kind of talk about later in another video. Or you just do the exact same heart rate test. Run for 10 minutes, and at the 10-minute mark, hit the lap button, and the last 20 minutes is going to give you your heart rate zone to work off of. And then on the heart rate, if you are going to do the 30-minute heart rate test, don't coast it on the first 10 minutes. That entire 30 minutes, you should be going as hard as you can. You want to cover as much ground as possible in 30 minutes. So you do want to pace yourself, but you don't want to, on the first 10 minutes, you don't want to be going 8 minutes a mile, and then on the last 20 minutes, averaging, 6:30. Like that, there should be a closer time frame or a little bit closer pace than that. So that's basically on all the tests. The next video, we're kind of going over how to set up the zones, and then future videos, how to actually use them in your training. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.